Get the Intel, the podcast meant for those of us trying to find out what the hell is going on in the field. Here we discuss tools, techniques, and approaches that you can implement to streamline operations and let you focus on your craft.
All right, welcome to the podcast. This is Chad Gill. So this podcast is brought to you by Concreate. We bring the world's most common building material and make it uncommon for you. So visit us at www.thisisconcrete.com. Today we're talking with Ryan Henry. Ryan is a guy I know from Strategic Coach, but he's a certified EOS implementer. Big fan of Gino Wickman, brought into it through his book Traction. He is based in Michigan. He's a former sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. So thank you for your service on that. And, he started out in the trenches of construction, came through construction management. Sounds like he comes from a family of let's just start a business for that. Familiar with that situation as well. So Ryan, thanks a lot for coming on. Really been looking forward to talking to you, man.
Brother Chad, it is great to see you and great to be here.
Good deal. So your family, it says here you had lumber yards, shoe stores, real estate, life insurance. Was it just y'all were walk down the road and go, we can do that?
Oh man, so all I've known my entire life is entrepreneurship. I didn't know how uncommon entrepreneurship really actually is. And I grew up in a family of family businesses, really. My grandfather was the patriarch, if you will, after the Korean War. He was working in a shoe store. And the owner came to him one day and he's like, Norm, I really like you. Just want to let you know, I'll be shutting the place down. Just want to give you a heads up. I know you got a young family. That young family he was referring to was my father, the firstborn, Craig. Oh, no. And Norm goes, well, what do I got to do to keep a job? And he's like, well, you could buy the place. And that's what he did. He bought the shoe store. And he got involved with growing that. By the time I hit the scene as his eldest grandson, this is 1978, there's 9 shoe stores across kind of the middle of what we call the Mitten, the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. There's 6 lumber yards, and he got involved with lumber yards because some older business guys in our community right outside of Lansing wanted to buy this old casket factory that had a lumber yard on it. And they just wanted the rail rights. That's right. That's right. The largest casket factory in the world. That's what they bought.
Somebody's got to build them.
Somebody had to. And they didn't want to shut the lumberyard down. And they thought, well, you're a good operator, Norm. You want to run that? So he did that. And by the time I hit the scene, there's 6 lumberyards. They got into insurance and real estate and multifamily and houses. A lot of it, candidly, through recessions where builders couldn't pay. So they would barter. And then they kind of thought, oh, this is kind of good. And so, I hit the scene. And I grew up watching my grandfather and my father try to do a business handoff from one generation to the next.
Oh, gosh.
And so I saw the good, I saw the bad, and I saw the ugly. And in about the mid-90s, when Clinton and the Republicans were in, and the economy had really started to ramp up and they had weathered the early 80s and late 80s recessions, their solve, if you will, and we talk about solving things forever in EOS, their solve was to sell. And that was probably the best thing they could have done for a lot of reasons. For me, I was pretty much a wild child in high school, and I didn't really want to be part of the family business, although I was always doing something at the lumber yard or what have you. And I was around a lot of entrepreneurs. And once they sold, it really kind of started to wake me up. And I was like, whoa, what am I going to do? There's nothing to hand off. And that started that journey of trying to figure out, who I am and what I'm supposed to do. Those are the 2 questions I've been asking myself this entire time.
The greatest questions on the planet. Those are the ones you're always asking about.
That's right.
And man, you've gotten into all kinds of things. You're on numerous nonprofit boards. You've run crews. You've been in the Marines. I'm sure both of those probably help you in all the things from in church planning.
I guess Man, okay, so I'll try to cap 18 to about 25, late 20s, because a lot of stuff happened in my life at that point. I joined the Marine Corps at 18 years old. I was just looking to get the heck out of town, and I was scared, and it felt like something I should do. I was trying to reset my life, and the Marine Corps gave me that when I signed up and was talking to the Marine recruiter. He's like, well, "What can you do?" And I had operated some equipment at the lumberyard, and they had bigger equipment called heavy equipment operator, and became a heavy equipment operator, went in the reserves, came back out and started working in the trenches, poured concrete, did excavation. So literally, like we were saying before the show started, literally came out of the trenches in the construction industry. I had a buddy that met a recruiter for a civil engineering firm that was doing owner rep project management for large downtown municipal, we called them combined sewer overflow projects. So we were working with large prime excavating contractors. And he said, hey, this is how he described the job, which is hilarious. Hey, you know the stuff we do, like pour concrete, lay pipe, road grade, all that? I'm like, yeah. He goes, you know those guys that come around and set line sites and take notes and talk to us and stuff? I said, yeah. He goes, they actually get paid really well to do that. And I go, you mean the people that watch us work? That's how we describe their job. They watched us work. He's like, yeah. And he's like, you want to do that? I'm like, go watch people do what you and I do. And he goes, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, I'm in. Let's do it.
So I can do that.
So it very quickly, like at 21, I got immersed. I was like the youngest one they had hired. Everybody else was like mid-30s. And I'll never forget, I get in the interview and my boss is this ex-NFL guy that everything was like a bulldozer. He just plowed everybody around. And he goes, why should I hire you? You don't know anything. And I just said, well, I'll tell you what, you hire me, I think you're going to love me. And if you don't, you can fire me. And then I just kind of smiled. And he's like, all right, let's do it. And so I did project management and got my just butt kicked working with a lot of older guys. But I learned how to negotiate with people, read prints, do draws, work with laborers, work with the city, work municipality. I met a bunch of construction owners. They seemed to like me. I seemed to really like them. I think now I realize, oh, they were entrepreneurs and they saw it in me too. And so I did that for like 4 years. And then during that same time, got married, got involved with a church planting movement called the Vineyard, went through their leadership and training. So learned how to do mission and vision and start something from nothing, which is like entrepreneurship, just Jesus style, right? Start a church. I didn't have any church background before I was 18. I was like the kid. If you're a parent and you met me with one of your kids, you'd be like, I don't want you to hang out with Ryan. I mean, that's how good I was at, being bad. Always a leader, just not always the best leading. So I'm church planning, I'm doing project management. My wife and I are buying and flipping houses. And a long-term friend of mine had started doing architectural work and some building work. And he just started to get a bunch of leads. And he said, why don't we join forces and see if we can take this somewhere? That was 2005. And by 2008, we had about 30 some employees. We were doing work at Michigan State University. We're building their baseball, softball complexes. So we're doing some kind of big boy, big girl stuff there. We're doing Fortune 500 build outs, Ameriprise Financial, Smith Barney, Morgan Stanley's. We did Bear Stearns we did one of Bear Stearns' last build outs before the recession hit, which was spooky. We were doing adaptive reuse, student housing. We're doing all kinds of stuff. We had self-performing crews. We were buying real estate and developing it. I always say we became an award-winning company. I became an award-winning entrepreneur, and we had award-winning projects. And like Dan Sullivan said, from the outside looking at us, we looked phenomenal. We looked great. On the inside, it was horrible. I felt like, oh my God, I'm working 100 hours a week. I'm hitting the ceiling. My partner and I are not on the same page. I still have vision to really go somewhere, and I'm trying to slam that vision into a 90-day world and not realize it's probably more like 3 years, that issue.
Oh, yeah.
And I had started to look for mentors, but candidly was kind of like, y'all are as screwed up as we are. you look successful, you're succeeding in spite of yourselves, but you got all the same problems. And so I leaned into books. So you see books behind me.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to 18, I never read a book. Like literally, honest to God, like never read a book. I was supposed to read books in school, but I never did. I always just sat next to the cute girl and figured out what the answers were. But I threw myself into books. I read Good to Great, had a BHAG, knew the language of label the bus, get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus. I had read Five Dysfunctions by Patrick Lencioni, Pyramid of Trust, right?
Love Lencioni, man. That's just
I love
great.
him. He's amazing. But all I knew from Pat's book was, oh no, we don't trust each other. That's all that was actually,
That's right.
I got done reading the book. I'm like, oh God.
This
I
has
don't know how
just
to
been
fix
called
that.
"We Have a Problem." It's like,
Yeah,
dang,
we don't
God.
trust each other. And then I had read Michael Gerber's E-Myth. And I was starting to use some of the stuff. And it started to kind of make sense. And I was starting to think differently, right? We're in coach. Dan teaches us how to think about how we think. So I was thinking differently about how I thought. And this is the summer of 2008. And then I'll kind of stop and let you respond. This is how EOS intersects with my life. So it's 2008. We got a lot of work. We had a lot of work, actually. The economy is starting to rumble, though, right? Before the crash in the fall. So I read all these books. I knew we sucked, but I knew we could suck less. I knew we were stupid, but I knew there was a road that was less stupid. If you're an entrepreneur, you're already a little
but you're like, oh.
like, eh. And so I'm there. I'm ready for change. Wham, the recession hits. And it hit hard.
Yes.
I'm in Michigan. I'm a young guy. I'm a contractor. Line of credit gets pulled. The bank just took it. They took it. People can't pay. Subs are going out of business. I mean, it was a mess. Very spooky, very scary. And my accountant, who had been my father's and grandfather's accountant, so I knew him for long. I knew him my whole life. He had got introduced to Gino Wickman, founder of EOS, who's actually from Michigan, lives about 45 minutes away from me.
Oh yeah.
His second in command, we call that person an integrator. Gino's a visionary. Don Tinney, second other implementer in the world, and Gino's integrator, who built this into a worldwide movement. His client was Jeff Cole, my accountant. Don Tinney's accountant was my accountant. So I got introduced to EOS when Gino had written Traction as a self-published book. And I don't have the copy, but if you've ever seen this book, maybe you know what we're talking about here. Traction.
Tire print.
Yep. And so it's actually got Dan Sullivan on the front of it. And Dan says this is a must. This book is a must for any business owner and their management team. Or Traction provides powerful, practical, and simple system for running your business. Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. He hands me this book. The quote from Dan's on the front. And I thought two things. Well, maybe I thought three things. I thought, who the heck is Dan Sullivan? Never heard of him before. Who the heck is Gino Wickman?
Yeah.
And why the heck should I read this book by some guy named Gino from Michigan? I mean, I've read all the business books. What's this? What I didn't know at the time was that was a fulcrum moment in my life. Much like, going in the Marine Corps was a fulcrum moment, much like meeting my wife was a fulcrum moment, much like becoming a church planner, starting the business. This became a fulcrum moment in my life. And that's the moment, well, everything changed. It was that really scary time back in 2008.
So what do you do when you tell people? A lot of my things, fulcrum moments, forks in the road and stuff, they always tend to isolate around not always crisis, not always bad, but always a triggering kind of event. Like the recession probably did it for a ton of people, but sometimes it's a lot of different things. It's we had a child get really, really sick.
Yeah.
And could not be in the business. And so that was a moment where you had to have a business that could run on its own, run without you. I've had, similar things. I had a parent, my dad's company went bankrupt when I was going as a freshman in college. big pivot point for me on that. Just because at that point I figured out I better learn how to study because I need a scholarship for the rest of the time. And that worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of things like that that hit. But now, when you reach some level of success, and we were talking about this in a forum the other day, how do you tell clients when you're a coach and stuff like that, and you say, okay, well, you got to take the next step. You hit a stagnant point. You're doing fine, but they're like, I want to do something more. I want to do something big. How do you trigger them to say, hey, man, in lieu of a crisis, how do you convince them, or should you convince them to take that next leap of I want to call it a leap of faith. It's something that'll trigger you without having the
Yeah.
necessary crisis.
Wow. So my mind's thinking like three things. I'm thinking Dan Sullivan's 4Cs. I'm thinking hit the ceiling. And I'm thinking, I'll tell you my story, how it happened for us and how I ended up becoming an EOS implementer.
Perfect.
So Dan Sullivan's got this teaching tool called the 4Cs. And I love the story he tells in the beginning. He talks about being in boot camp during the Vietnam War in the Army, and the night before they have to go out and throw live hand grenades, their platoon is just a mess. They're terrified. Everybody didn't sleep good. Everybody's scared, stuff like that. But nobody's really talking about it. And the next morning, the sergeant gets everybody, squad bay, imagine the open squad bay kind of thing, gets everybody out, lined up, and he says, and only I could think of Vietnam War sergeant boot camp guy would say, any of you scared? And Dan, who's small in stature, very built, but not as tall as the average, guy. He's the only guy of 50 men. He raises his hand. Oh, imagine the feeling. Wow. The sergeant looks around and he points at Dan and he goes, you know what? Dan's the only one here that I trust because Dan's actually telling the truth.
Nice.
And he goes, and Dan, you're going first.
Yeah, you'll have to worry the least.
And so Dan, in such a Dan way, just says, no, went down the hole, pulled the pin, I threw it over the mount, I did my job. And at the end of that, the sergeant says to everybody, well, I want to tell you guys the difference between being scared and courage. You know what the difference between scared and courage is? And the room's quiet. The difference between scared and courage is this. Scared, wet in your pants. Courage, just knowing what to do with wet pants. And so why I say that is when you're scared, you got to own that emotion. When you're scared, when you're hitting a ceiling, same idea. But when you're scared, you got to just say, I'm scared. There's no shame in saying you're scared. There's a lot of people out there like, oh yeah, no fear. Don't, no. Acknowledge it. Be vulnerable. Say, I'm scared. Nothing wrong with that at all. That's what breeds trust and honesty and openness. And now we know what the issue is. Keith Cunningham, nothing can be solved until the unsaid is said. What's the issue? Oh, you're scared. Okay, great. Now it's time to have courage. Most people don't want to go confidently into something because they don't have the confidence. Well, confidence is a byproduct of having the capability. Capability comes from courage. Courage from having the clarity of what you should do and what you shouldn't do. That's Dan's 4Cs. So that first comes to me, just be honest, just say it, and then get clarity about what you must commit to, and then have 100% courage to go do it. Just do it. Whatever it is, so that's applicable. Ask those same questions that produce different answers at different times. So I love that thinking tool. The next piece that's thinking in my head is what we teach in the EOS called hitting the ceiling. And it's a thinking tool as well. I call it a clarity break tool. And the idea is pretty simple. All people, teams, and companies go through two periods: a period of evolution where they've changed, and a period of revolution where they need to change again. Most people, though, when they hit a ceiling, they think something's wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just you're hitting a ceiling. Now, ceilings, I think ceilings are feelings. Ceilings of it's complex and we need to simplify. I'm overwhelmed. I need to delegate. I can't do it all anymore. I used to be able to do it. Now I can't. I feel like there's fog of war. It's a military term for, You should be focused and you're not focused. What are you going to do to get great at predicting? I feel like I'm herding cats. Nobody's listening. Got to systemize, create a way in which we do things so it becomes self-managing. And then lastly, chaos. Got to bring structure to the chaos, because opportunity, every entrepreneur, every person, every company has opportunities. But oh my gosh, opportunity without a structure is chaotic. It's insane. My wife used to call me the Lord of Chaos. And I used to be like, yeah, you're right. It's a badge of honor. And she was like, I didn't mean it that way. So
Yeah.
it's
You think you're
normal
courageous. Yeah, you
it's
think you're
normal
courageous.
to hit a ceiling. And just remember, when you hit a ceiling as a person, as a team, as a company, there's 3 options. You can fail. 8 out of 10 businesses do. So don't get it twisted. Don't get hubris. Don't get cocky. You got to create an open and honest environment where you can allow anything to be said, because people, teams, and companies hit a ceiling. Most people, teams, and companies fail because they don't listen either to themselves, or their teammates, or the company at large. Bet you back in the day, nobody thought Sears was going to fail.
How could they?
How could you think Sears was going to fail?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
know that.
you know.
Candidly, though, most people I meet, they're just tolerating it. Oh, yeah, that sounds great, Ryan. But, this is just my industry. A lot of construction people are my clients. A lot of them talk like that. Well, this is just how it is. I'm like, it's your game. How do you want to play it? You don't have to tolerate that. Well, it'll create a lot of change. That's right. That's the next piece, is breakthrough. If you want change, you're going to have to do something scary. I say scary is change equals breakthrough. Here's the deal. I've never met a person or a team or a company, once I explain that says, no, I don't want change. But we know very few ever get it. Very few people ever continually to grow and change, because they want to think I've arrived and I'm done.
Oh yeah.
So,
And I think
those
that's
two
a
things
lot.
those 2 things are just hitting me. Go ahead.
I think it's a lot too of I mean, I'm projecting, but I'm guessing, I'm hoping that other people feel the same way. It's like you almost your initial fear of getting into a program like that is saying, "Oh, I hear what you're saying, Ryan, and I would love to have a self-managed company. I would love to have all those kind of things, but and this is the one I hate the most. But mine is different, and it's
Oh
not
yeah.
different. It's so
Oh
not
yeah.
different." But then you
Yeah.
wonder, is it really real? Because you meet people, you're like,
Yeah.
man, I bet his company runs like a clock. And then you get in there and you're like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
but does
Well,
it really run?
yeah, that's what's so interesting about my journey that I've been on since that moment, that fulcrum moment when I, and I didn't read EOS, or I didn't read the book Traction at first. I think it was about 6 to 8 weeks after he gave it to me. And he would call me and text me almost incessantly. And he'd go, did you read the book? I'm like, no, I don't got, here, you heard this one? I
All
don't
the
got time to
time.
do that. I got time to read that. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on, Jeff. What do you think I got? Just time to sit down and read a book? And then he's like, listen, just read the first 10 pages. Take this assessment that'll tell you how strong you are in your 6 key components. And then you'll know where you stand. And I remember thinking, I'll never forget it. I mean, I came into this kicking and screaming. I'm like, what the hell does Gino from Livonia, Michigan, outside of Detroit, know how many components of my business that I have? I was so like anti everything that was saying. It's hilarious now that, I'm an EOS implementer. So I read the 10 pages. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I've heard of this stuff before. This isn't like earth shattering. EOS isn't earth shattering. It's the best business stuff on the planet, contextualized into an operating system for entrepreneurs. I mean, that's what EOS is. It's an operating system, soup to nuts, how to operate foundationally. It works for every entrepreneur company on the planet. So I read it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I take the organizational checkup. It's 20 questions. I'm honest with it. We're an award-winning construction company, development company, by the way. I'm thinking before I take it, I mean, we suck, but not a lot. We're probably 70, 75%,
Oh yeah, clearly.
24%.
Yes.
It just, boom, changed my life. I'm like, oh, wow, man. And I caught a vision for like, holy smokes. What if we were 70% strong? I thought, oh man, I got to go there. And so 2 things happened for me as an entrepreneur. I thought, can we fix the business? Can we save the business? Because the business was in a free fall. It's functionally bankrupt. in about 6 months. We went from being up a lot to being down a lot. Maybe some of you listen know that story. And we should have just filed bankruptcy, but I just didn't want to. And so EOS saved the business. We didn't hire an implementer. Candidly, I didn't even really understand what an implementer was. Jeff told me that I could get an implementer, but I'm like, I think we got it. We'll be all right. And so in a bastardized way, we implemented EOS, and in that bastardized implementation, it saved the business from bankruptcy and insolvency. And we got a niche. We got a core focus about what we're supposed to do. And we started really just building the company we wanted to build. By 2016, we get an implementer because EOS caught fire at that point. It was going all over the place. And a bunch of my entrepreneurial buddies were using EOS, and their experience was just like 100 times better than mine. And I'm thinking, I've been doing this for 6 years. You've been doing this for 6 months. And I'm not that smart, but I can use enough deductive reasoning to realize the issue is me. I don't have an implementer. An implementer is just another entrepreneur that teaches EOS, coaches EOS implementation, and facilitates the wisdom. We're not consultants. We're just entrepreneurs that like to help other entrepreneurs. And so I got an implementer. And from 16 to 18, 3 kind of main things happened. One, I became the visionary and realized that's what I am. I'm a visionary. I'm a big idea guy. I'm big relationships. I love selling the ideas and the opportunities. I love the future, and I love culture, and I love R&D. And I'm horrible at management. I mean, God, I'm just the worst at managing people. I'm great at leading, but I'm not good at managing. And that felt so freeing. Kathy Colby says, be free to be you. And I'm like, wow, this is totally different. I also realized I loved helping other entrepreneurs. Everything in my life was about collaborating with another visionary and going, I see what you see. And they go, do you see what I see? I go, yeah, I can help you do it. In my business that was building, I did it with visionary developers. I go, I know what you want to do. I can help you. I can collaborate with you to get that building built, to do that development. And I had a who, not how team. My team was doing it. They were running the business day to day. My partner was leading it. And I realized I just could apply that to so many different things. And so I started teaching and facilitating EOS implementation for free, mostly because I just was trying to help. I was just trying to help my buddies. They were in pain and they were suffering. And so in 2018, in the EOS session, I had a realization that I needed to let go of this former business, give it to my business partner, and pursue a path of entrepreneurship that was a totally different game, that lived out being a visionary for other visionaries. And one of the manifestations, if you will, is becoming an implementer. So I spend 2 to 3 days a week in a session room with a leadership team implementing EOS. I got 4 other companies I'm involved with, either in the owner's box as a visionary or the visionary of. And man, it's been a wild journey. I can't believe I'm on a call with you talking about EOS, and then I'm an implementer. Humbled. Just humbled. Like, what a journey. Can't believe it. So glad that I had somebody that cared about me enough to, stop me in my tracks and go, you got to listen, man. There's a better way to do things. So, man, Dan Sullivan and Gino Wickman changed my life. So the fact that we're talking about this stuff, man, it's super cool.
Yeah. And we did the same thing. We implemented EOS, made a huge difference. Our most successful year, the following year, we put in EOS because the most successful year was the one that nearly killed us.
Yeah.
You're just to the wall all the time. And you're like, oh my gosh, man, it's like, this is great and everything, but I don't know if this is what I want.
Yeah.
And then I think, like your path to coaching kind of like is an idea of saying, man, it doesn't have to be this hard. You don't have to have all these. I have all these scars. You don't need these scars. I can just tell you about it. You can skip to the next level.
Man.
Frustrating. So you're coaching now, and it's what is like the biggest like what are the biggest thing you see from clients where you're like, oh man, if I could just get them to, it takes a long time to convince them of this, but once they do, it's like a light bulb moment.
Yeah, so that makes me think, like, I've been doing EOS implementation as a professional implementer, part of the EOS implementer community for 3 years, pretty much right now. What have I think more about it when you ask that question. I think, what have I learned? Right. in working with entrepreneurs implementing EOS? Well, so the right entrepreneur comes into my life ready. Like they're already aware. Like we talked about this in the beginning about being honest, being vulnerable. The right entrepreneur, we have a core value saying in EOS, we call it humbly confident. I can tease that out contextually for myself. I call that walking with a limp, but you still got the fire in your eye. You know what I mean? Like they've been to battle. Like my best visionaries, they've been to battle, and they walk with a limp. They got clay feet. They're humble, but they're not done. Oh, they're not done. They got more to go, and they got that fire in their eye. So they're still confident that there's more to go, but they're humbled by the journey. They realize they can't do it all, and they want to let go of the vine, we call it, and they really want to live out their unique ability. Dan Sullivan term, just be you. Who do you feel like you really are? Man, I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, and the ones that come in and they're like, okay, that's what I want. I want to create a business that leaves me alone. You know, in the US, we got a saying for people that lead and manage. We call it LMA, lead, manage, and create accountability. I always say to the visionary, you don't have to LMA. If we implement EOS, the business LMAs you, it leaves me alone.
That's perfect.
And that's, and that's what they want, is to have a better life. You know, most entrepreneurs I meet, they want a better life. And so we say, yeah, so that's our collaboration. That's my collaboration with the visionary. So he or she is ready for change. And so I don't have to fight them. They're ready for that. And, I guess what I've learned is if they're not ready for that, I don't bring them in. I'm like, yeah, you're not ready for this. I don't know if you need to go out and get your ass kicked some more or what, but
that's right.
I don't know.
It's like, hey, look, man.
By the way, I've never met one that says that's not. You ever met an entrepreneur that says, yeah, I don't want a self-managing business and to have my ideal life? I mean, nobody, what toxic, dysfunctional person says that?
Oh, yes.
But so many don't enter that danger, which is change. So the best ones, they enter the danger. But because they're great at people and caring for people as a core value champion person, and they just really help their teams quite a bit. It's not always pretty. It's not always easy. But it can be a whole lot more simple. So we always say in the US, as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the company. What I've learned is, as goes the visionary, so goes the leadership team. So I'm always looking for that visionary that's ready for the change. Because if I can get that guy or gal on the same wavelength, we can do anything.
So you work with a lot of construction companies. When you do this, do you find that somebody coming from a labor field, a labor of, if I can't build it, it's not work? Do you have a hard time convincing them that, hey, I need you to not be out there digging, nailing, driving, framing, pouring. I need you to be in here leading. And they're like, yeah, but I need to work.
Well, yeah. So, so sometimes, yes. So when when it's not applicable, they've already tried to multiply the business, and they've already just, get their ass kicked and realize they can't be in two places at once. So they can't do it all. So they've already realized that. So they're looking to somebody to teach them how to not think that way and be that way. Usually there's a spouse behind them going, please, God, Ryan, thank you. Oh,
he's either going to die or I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So when that's going on, that's there. So they're either there or they're going to get there really quick in the process, or they're just going to run away because they don't want to change. But those that have the head trash, we call it, of, well, great, I'm a visionary, so now I just get to think about things. I don't do things. I just lead. Leading is thinking, working on the business. What am I supposed? They always say this. What am I supposed to do? And so, when we do an EOS, is we don't tell anybody to do anything. I'm not here to tell them to do anything. I'm here just to give them context of a way to think differently about it. So here's what it looks like contextually, and then you got to decide, is that what you want? And then there's a journey to get there, right? Not perfect. But those that know they got to get out of the doing and they got to change their mind about the doing, I always paint them a picture of, hey, so question, who in the company can go meet random people, build relationships, and then go create opportunities out of it? Who in the business can do that? And they're like, well, I can do that. I'm like, oh, that's right. Good. Anybody else? Can anybody else do that? And they're like, yeah. No. I'm like, okay, so there's something you can do. Is there anybody in the business that can kind of like Rain Man into a honey hole of information? Yeah, Rain Man honey hole, right? Go down it, go R&D into something, and then synthesize how they can bring that into the company and have a vision for that, to see something like that change. Anybody in your company can do that? Well, yeah, no, I can do that. Okay, cool. Anybody else? Well, no. Like, well, there you go. There's two things now you can do. Okay, anybody in the business that can have an idea and then get everybody to believe in it by just simply talking. Anybody can do that in business? Oh, no, I can do that. Oh, okay, cool. Okay. Well, there you go. Yeah. Anybody else? Not like I can. You see where I'm going, right? And so, can anybody just go get left alone and come back like Moses off the mountain? Like, here it is. This is how we're going to do things. Can anybody do that? Well, I could do that. I go places. I hang out. I shoot deer. And we talk about clarity breaks in the U.S. A lot of my guys that are in construction, like, I go out in the woods, I shoot deer, and that's how I take a clarity break. I'm like, great. It's awesome. You come out of the woods after you shoot deers or don't shoot deers and have better clarity about your business? Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. You're going to do a lot of that. Can you do that and do really good?
And a lot of them just heard that their bullets are now tax deductible.
And so what I get on the face is like a mix of bewilderment, excitement, confusion, and then I go, now it's time to exercise courage. That's who you are. You got to know, man, like there's like 3 to maybe 5% of the people in the world that are like this. Now you're free. Go be you. Go do it. Just go do it. You're not going to be great at it at first. But be good. You're going to get better at it. Go do it. Leave them alone. I always say LMA for a visionary is silent. It's leave me alone. Leave the team. You need to leave the team alone, and then they'll leave you alone.
And what do you do when you say?
Hopefully that helps. That's how I think.
No, it does, and it puts you in the mindset of shifting, because a lot of times I would think that the next part of that conversation is, okay, but well, who's going to do all the billing? You're like, well, you can have somebody do the billing. Yeah, but it only takes me like an hour. It'll take somebody else like 3 hours. You're like, they might make a third of what you make. They might make what you make. But, well, who's going to do this and who's going to do that? Which Dan Sullivan clearly has a book for that, who, not how. But then it comes up with, how do I afford who? And how do you put those in place?
Oh, man. So you want to go there? Let's go there. So number
this is
one,
my own personal therapy session. I'd like to tell everybody to have it figured out, but this is just me getting free coaching.
Oh, yeah. So by the way, I totally was horrible at all of this. So I'm teaching what I needed the most. And I'm also an entrepreneur, so there's no theory here. I've had to learn this, and I continually am learning this with these other businesses I'm in. So no theory. And I suck at it too sometimes, which is like every day. So, I'm on the journey too. So like, couple things. I love what Gino says. He says, if you want to make 6 figures, you got to delegate everything that's $25 an hour or less work to somebody else. If you don't want to make 6 figures, keep doing it. But if you want to make 6 figures, you got to start delegating $25 an hour work. I'll give you a practical example. I'm in a 1,600 square foot session room. And when I first got into it, I was cleaning it. I was stocking it. I was ordering the food for it. I was doing all that kind of stuff. And I thought, wow, how much time of a week am I spending on doing this? I took a clarity break. I thought, how much time a week am I spending on doing this? Because I wasn't even really thinking about it. Should I do it or should I not do it? I thought, holy crap. Like the physical work, I'm spending like 6 hours, maybe 8 hours a week. then the mental capacity of thinking about it, like how much mental mindset when I'm not even doing it, am I thinking about it? And then I ask myself, well, am I even good at it? So like, I'm not even good at it. So from a delegate to elevate, that falls in the bottom quadrant. So what we call a delegate to elevate. I'm not even good at it. Do I love it? No. Do I like it? No. Do I hate it? I hate it. So I'm like, oh, so I hate it and I'm not even good at it. And it's taking probably 10 hours a week mentally and physically to handle it. Okay. Let's create an opportunity for a new seat. Let's build a seat. So I built a seat. I said, I need somebody to own the maintenance, the cleaning, the food, the ordering of the materials, everything, just to own the operations of the session room. Built a seat, built all the issues out, built the scorecard, built to-dos, built some process for what they should do. I went and found somebody, and it's $35 an hour, and it cost me $150 a week. It freed up 10 hours. Now, I'm not going to get into how much I make an hour, but it's a lot more than that.
Right. Dozens of dollars.
And if you're a visionary entrepreneur that either you think you can make a lot more than that or you are making more of that, oh my gosh, if you want to break through the ceiling and really let go, you just got to stop and think. Way better news than even of that, you can go to a totally different level. We're talking about integrators. If you're the visionary founder and you've got a bunch of people reporting to you, say sales and marketing people, operational people, and finance and admin people, back of the house stuff, if you got all those people responding to you and reporting to you, just so you know, you can separate that into two seats. You can be the visionary, big ideas, big relationships, big sales, R&D, and culture, create the future. And you can hire somebody, we call that an integrator, to do all that work, to lead and manage and hold accountable the major functions of the business, to execute the business plan. That's 2 pages, 8 questions. Call that a VTO in EOS. Simple business plan, 2 pages, 8 questions. Execute that for you day to day. Run the business day to day. Be in the business day to day. Run the company on a profit loss focus. Most visionary entrepreneurs, come on, be open and honest. Are you really good with numbers? We would say, I'm really good at making the numbers. Yeah. And ask that question. Are you really good at managing the numbers, though? Most are not. So get somebody that can handle all that stuff that you trust, and get somebody that can run this place and turn this thing into a well-oiled machine. So then you can be free from running the business day to day and be out working on the business and maybe not even have an office in the business.
And it's funny because as a visionary.
So you might be thinking, that's radical. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm going, yeah, I am serious. Like, well, how quick can that happen? A lot quicker than you think. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And that's the thing that trips up visionaries. For me, I never want to delegate a job I didn't want to do. Because it's like, God, if I don't want to do it. And then I found an integrator. And it turns out there's people that like doing that stuff.
Oh,
and the
man,
last thing they want to do is have to go into a crowded room that they don't know anybody and walk out of there knowing somebody and hopefully doing business with them. They're like, that's my hell on earth. Me, I'm like, gosh, that's Tuesday. I love it. The last thing I'd want to have to do is approve a vacation request. I don't care when you take vacation. I didn't even know we had vacation. I was just kind of hoping you would just make money for me. But
That's
these
right.
people, they live on it. There's somebody who loves approving expense reports. And
that's
and
right.
it's
And
crazy.
it's just, and you just think, oh my God, that's the head trash. We think, well, I can't delegate this to somebody because I hate it. I'm not good at it. Well, we're not asking you to delegate it to somebody that also hates it, that also is not good at it. You know, we believe everybody has a unique ability in the world. We're looking for somebody that goes, you know what? You're going to let me have it all the way? And you go, yeah, as long as I can trust you. Well, the first question is do you love this kind of stuff? And somebody goes, I love it. I immediately go, you're insane. Well, they go, you're insane. I wouldn't want to do any of this stuff you can do. And like, therein lies unique ability. And could you be great at it? And they go, I think so. All right, let go.
I'm definitely not giving you a company vehicle because I don't trust you. But, certainly hear my finances.
One of my favorite things I hear, we're picking on visionaries today. Chad and I are visionaries. But one of my favorite things I hear from visionaries when we build seats in the EOS, we call it accountability chart. So we build seats to delegate things to people. It is an entrepreneurial thing. It's not the bureaucracy here. We're not building seats for seat's sake. But sometimes we'll build out a seat And we'll define the 5 roles of the seat, what the name of the seat is, how many hours a week the seat needs to set in to be strong, what the money is we're going to invest in the seat. A seat shouldn't cost us something. That would be dumb. Should be have an ROI. So what do we want? Well, we want people that are like us. Dan Sullivan says, when you're looking to hire somebody, you're looking for yourself. So we're looking for a core value fit. If they're not a core value fit, game over, because we hire, fire, and lead and manage and hold accountable based on core values. If we don't, should take the core values down, because what you say is not what you do. That solves a lot of issues, by the way, folks. So if you've never done that before, talk to Chad. He knows. He does it. He's on EOS. Next is, do they get the seat? We need somebody that intellectually gets it. They go, oh, I get it. I get it. They also need to get that no one else is doing it, that they're the one that's going to have to do it. So then you go, hey, well, you get it, but do you want it? You can't make somebody want it. You can't pay somebody to want it. They just got to want it. Spring out of bed, I want it. I want to own it. I want to own all the issues relating to it. I want to own it. Because when 2 people sit in one seat, I mean, it's awkward. It's weird. You ever seen 2 people sit in a seat? You know, it's like super kind of weird. I mean, just even like at a restaurant, you ever seen somebody sit with somebody else in another seat? It's not that comfortable.
It's worse post-COVID.
You got to let it go, man. It's super weird, yeah. And then they got to have the capability, the capacity, the God-given ability to pull it off. They got to be the right people in the right seats. You got to build them a scorecard so they know what winning looks like for the week. They got to own some priorities for a quarter. We call those rocks. And they got to be able to get stuff done. You ever been in a meeting and you're like, oh yeah, I'll get that done next week. And you come back and they're like, still working on it. You're just like, you want to kill them. No, they got to do it. You got to leave them alone for a week and they got to come back and have the ability to do it. So we build that seat out. That's EOS in a nutshell when it comes to building out seats and the expectations of a seat. And I'll never forget it. Visionary, and I hear it often. The visionary will go, well, yeah, of course. I mean, in a perfect world, if we could find somebody that could do all that, of course I'd invest that kind of money. Well, perfect. There's like how many billions of people on the planet? We're just looking for one person.
Gotta be one somewhere.
And you know what? Gosh darn it, there usually is. There usually is. And then they come back and they're like, I did it. I found somebody for the seat. And wow. Well, amazing. I'm like, well, there you go.
Makes a huge difference. Magic. It's magic.
Well, a lot of that's belief, though. A lot of that's belief that if we believe that this is the structure we need, that we believe that we can find the people that want those seats.
That's awesome.
It is pretty cool, actually.
So have you got a podcast? You've got a podcast, don't you? You should have a podcast.
Oh, man.
If you don't.
So, I'll get you back on the podcast. We started some new businesses this year and put the podcast on hold because we were going to revamp our podcast. So we're rolling back out what's called Catch and Vision. It's a podcast for visionaries that catch the vision of change, right, for their lives and for their businesses. So, yeah.
All right. Well, good deal. We'll definitely, as soon as it comes back out, we'll put a link in it, get this thing going. So I would say, happily reach out to Ryan. He can EOS you to death, but only if you're in the Michigan area, right?
Well, so I take on clients from anywhere, just so long as they want to fly into good old Lansing, Michigan, and I got a great session room experience for them. So
well stocked and cleaned.
Well stocked and clean session room.
Because you've delegated it.
That's right.
If you're a classic visionary, that thing would be chock full of last time's meeting.
That's right. So that's the rule. There are a couple people that I love so much that have some exceptional reasons why they can't come to me. So maybe if you're an exception or you think you're an exceptional person for me to travel to you, we can talk about that too. But as a rule, most people come just to me in my session room. Sounds
perfect.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate you taking the time and see what we can get figured out, man. We'll have to kind of check back in later on and see how it's all coming together for you and growing.
It's a pleasure to be here. So good to just riff with you a little bit about this whole world that we live in. It's great.
Oh gosh, I'll tell you, man, it's always fun to find another way. But I think the key thing I'm getting out of it from you is 70% is a hell of a lot better than 24. Is that where you went?
Same. That's right.
Yeah. That's a whole gap and gain conversation, but that 70 is a whole lot better than that 24. And that's
I'll give all the listeners a parting word. Here's the deal. Wherever you are, that's just where you are. And all progress starts by telling the truth. I'm a walking, talking Dan Sullivan quote there, but just be honest with yourself. Know where you are, and then ask for help. Just look for somebody to help you. That's all it comes down to.
That's perfect.
Then you're on your way.
That's the perfect ending to it. Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Get the Intel. We'll see you next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.